we will see about lumbar region in the vertebral column biomechanics. So lumbar region we will be going for the structure, articulation, ligaments. These things already we have discussed, ample number of times we have discussed. So let us go to the theory part of it. Lumbar vertebrae, it will hold the greatest amount of our body weight. So compared to other vertebrae, lumbar vertebrae will be bigger enough. Okay, it will be bigger enough and it will be taking so much of weight compared to other vertebra. Then it is also very large. Then all its bodies and spinous process that things will be very small, short and short. So this is your structure of lumbar vertebrae. So in this, how the kinetics and kinematics will be, we have seen already. Okay. So what are the ligaments, important ligaments present in the lumbar region alone? Means the continuation of the cervical. From the cervical, we have the continuation of the ligamentum flavum, posterior longitudinal ligament, anterior longitudinal ligament, the interspinous ligament. So everything is a continuation from the skull. Okay, so all these things already what is in the cervical region, then it is continuing in the thoracic region, and same thing it is going to continue in the lumbar region also. So these are the ligaments. If they ask for a 5 mark, what are the ligaments present in the lumbar region, you have to compulsorily write all these ligaments. What is very important in this is the thoracolumbar fascia or the dorsolumbar fascia. It has 3 layers, anterior, middle and posterior. So today we will be taking more importance about this thoracolumbar fascia. Okay, so this triangular region in the diagram you see, no, so that is called not triangular, this is quadrangular. This is called thoracolumbar fascia. What it is doing is it is just connecting the muscles. Okay, it is just connecting the muscles. Then fascia, we all know it is having two types of, we all have two types of fascia, superficial fascia and deep fascia. So what it is doing, this thoracolumbar fascia, it is a deep fascia. Okay, it is a deep fascia, it is not superficial. So it is just, it is a diamond shape. So how it is constituting, that is anteriorly how it is attached, posteriorly, then laterally how it is attached, and what it is enclosing, what are the structures it is enclosing, we will see today. So the thoracolumbar fascia, it is a deep fascia. It is lying medial to the nuchal ligament. Just imagine the tips of the spinous process of the vertebra. The spinous process will be present on the posterior side. So the tips of the spinous process of vertebra. Then if you are taking the spinous process, then you can go just above the supraspinous ligament. So it is also having some little bit attachment to the supraspinous ligament also. And the changes its name at the thoracic and lumbar region. So that ligament, when it is coming downwards, it is converting it as a thoracolumbar fascia before inserting into the medial crust of sacrum. See, sacrum bone which is present below the L5 vertebra, it is going and connecting with this thoracolumbar fascia is going and connecting. So in massage classes, exercise therapy too, you will be seeing how how all will be teaching you the massage at the thoracolumbar fascia. You will not concentrate on the center of the spine. What you will do is with the help of your hand, that kneading or rolling or effleurage, whatever you are doing, from the spine, center of the spine, you will take it to the outside, isn't it? Then at the back massage, during the techniques, at the lower end, what you will do, you will try to do the muscles rolling laterally from medial to lateral, that is center of the spine. If you take two hands, if you have your two hands, just medial to lateral, from center to lateral, you will be trying to do your massage. That is because you are going to relax this, you are stretching this thoracolumbar fascia. If many people, if we are stretching the thoracolumbar fascia, they will be getting relief from the back pain. Severe back pain will be reduced. Nowadays, what the techniques the physiotherapists are using is, we are trying to release the soft tissues, especially the fascia. If we are trying to stretch the fascias, so if we want to stretch the fascia, we must know the fascia origin and insertion wherever it is attached. So according to that, we can do the stretching of the fascia. Okay, the anterior, I told it is 3 layers of thoracolumbar fascia. So the anterior and the middle layers, they get insert into the transverse process of the vertebral column. but the posterior layer, it is inserting into the tips of the spinous process. So it is indirectly continuous, it is nothing but the indirect continuation of the interspinous ligaments. Already we have talked about the spinous ligament, supraspinous ligament. See in this we have already seen the supraspinous ligament. Then coming we are also here noting the interspinous ligaments. So it is a continuation of the supraspinous ligament and the interspinous ligament. Then this thoracolumbar fascia, it is anteriorly it is thin, and posteriorly it will be very thick. Okay, so it forms the two spaces are formed between these three layers of fascia. How the spaces will be formed? Think what will happen. So there is a space formed between this anterior layer and the posterior layer. So there comes a small space there between the three layers. So what is the use of this space? I will tell you at the last. The psoas major, it lies anterior to the anterior layer with the anterior fascia. Okay, so anterior part of this thoracolumbar fascia, it is getting connected with the psoas major muscle and the anterior longitudinal ligament. Then between the anterior and middle layer, the quadratus lumborum muscle is present. The erecta spinae muscles and the transverse spinalis muscles are enclosed between the middle and the posterior layer. See, first you are telling about the anterior layer, then anterior and middle layer, then middle and posterior layer, then coming to the posterior layer. So various superficial layers on the posterior thorax and abdomen then arise from the posterior layer. So these primarily includes the latissimus dorsi and serratus posterior inferior. So anteriorly the thoracolumbar fascia is connected to psoas major muscle and the anterior longitudinal ligament. Posteriorly it is connected to latissimus dorsi and serratus posterior inferior. So middle layer, how we are telling is middle and anterior, middle and posterior. So middle and anterior it is having attachment with the quadratus lumborum. Middle and posterior, it is having attachment with the erecta spinae and the transverse spinalis muscles. See in the real parts of the body, see the diamond shape of the thoracolumbar fascia. So where the latissimus dorsi is present and where the trapezius and where the thoracolumbar fascia is actually present. So what is its function? So still I have not told you about what is the use of that space which is formed between the layers. Okay, so it acts as a function, it acts as an attachment site for many of the muscles. It is helping to attachment of these muscles, trapezius, latissimus dorsi, gluteus and the hamstring and the group of muscles. They are playing important role because they are all long muscles, two joint or three joint muscles. So this fascia is helping them to make them attach for the attachment. Then it also houses, the quadratus lumborum, transverse spinalis, transverse erecta spinae and the multifidus muscles and their tendons of their intrinsic muscles of the posterior thoracic and the lumbar regions. Okay, so it is also helping for the attachment for the posterior thoracic and lumbar region muscles. So thoracolumbar fascia, if they ask for 5-mark question, you have to write all these things. So what is the use of the space of the thoracolumbar fascia? Any one of you? What is the use? Any one of you? What you understood in this? Are you able to follow?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the use of that space, I asked you, no? What for the space must be there? Okay, in sinus, what is the use of sinus? Generally, what we will tell? We have a lot of sinus in the face we have. So what is the use of the spaces and the sinus? Sinus, what it will do? It will try to take the weight, or sometimes for the resonance we will tell, no? Like that, this space is used for the accommodation. That is, when the muscles, when we are going for sudden flexion, sudden extension. So during these types of movements, the muscles has to stretch itself. So the muscles has to stretch and contract. So for that movement, we need a little bit of space over the fascia. So for that use only the spaces are present in between the layers of the fascia. In order to prevent the shock absorption, that is to remove the friction, because this fascia, what it is doing is, it is just lying above the muscles. Some fascia is lying above the nerves, some fascia are lying above the blood vessels. They are separating blood vessels from nerve vessels, muscles from blood vessels. So there must be a space in order to prevent the friction between the muscles during the movement. Okay, then coming to lumbosacral angle, this is also an important question, a 5-mark question. So lumbosacral angle, that will determine all, this angle will determine the lumbar lordosis of every person. It is nothing but the articulation between L4, that is L5, L5 vertebra and the sacrum, where the particular place where the L5 vertebra and the S1 vertebra, that is the sacral segment, they both are attaching. So there an angle is formed. That angle we call it as a lumbosacral angle. So this angle is very important for determining the lumbar lordosis. The lumbosacral angle, LSA, we can tell how it is done is, it is a perpendicular to the lumbar line, drawn on the anterior surface of L3, where it is anterior surface of L3. So in this two lines, which will be your perpendicular line? The one which is horizontal line, or one which is which one we can call it as perpendicular line? And the perpendicular drawn to the sacral line. See, the line which is present horizontally, that is called sacral line, and the line which is coming and meeting this line, that one oblique line, that is that line is called the perpendicular line, and that is making an angle called lumbosacral angle. And this angle is being it is inclined, and it is formed anteriorly and inferiorly. See where the angle is formed. The angle is formed posteriorly or anteriorly. The bodies are present anteriorly, the spines are present posteriorly. So this angle is formed anteriorly and inferiorly. From the diagram you can tell this angle is formed anteriorly and inferiorly. Okay, so this is called lumbosacral angle. So what will happen if the lumbosacral angle is increased? If there is an increase in lumbosacral angle, see, if the angle is increased, then that will lead to increase in the lumbar lordosis. If the angle is increased, lumbar lordosis will be increased. So if the lumbar lordosis is increased, then there will be more of a shearing stress at the lumbosacral joint. Lumbosacral joint will be taking more amount of weight. So it is better all have the normal lumbar lordosis. So that only we are telling that we have to sit in the chair correctly and properly, and we must not lean lean in the chair. That is, we will sometimes we will not sit straight, isn't it? Instead of sitting straight, you will be flattening, like you are sitting in the easy chair. So when you are sitting in the easy chair, your lumbar angle will be increased, and that will that will lead for a longer time. If you are practicing in the easy chair, sitting in the easy chair, then your lumbar lordosis will be increased. Then there will be a stiffness in the spine, stiffness and pain in the spine. So this angle at birth it will be 20 degree to an average of 70 degree at the age of C. At the age of 5 it is more. At the age of 5, due to the flexibility of the spine, and since the bone has not taken its full bony growth, it is still present in the cartilaginous stage, and the bones are also will be soft for the children. So the lumbar lordosis, the lumbar angle will be more little bit. But after the age 5, it will try to decrease. It will try to decrease, and it will try to come to an average of 20 to 30 degree as the normal. Okay, so initially the angle will be more during birth. After that the angle will try to reduce. Then at the age of 5, after that it will try to be remaining in the normal, same thing, it will not try to increase. Then one more thing is, LSA is not related to increasing age, height of weight, nor do obstetrical requirements seem to play a major role in the formation of lumbosacral angle. See, that is what they are telling us. Whatever may be, if a child after the age of 5, the lumbar lordosis normally it will try to decrease from 70 degree to 30 degree. 30 to 40 degree will be the normal lumbosacral angle. it is not going to depend upon whether the child will grow very height or the child will be dwarf or it will be very short child or the child is a obese child. It is not going to bother about that. Just the angle will be, lumbosacral angle will be 30 to 40 degree. But what happens to the female in case of pregnancy? During pregnancy, there is an increase of lumbar lordosis. So on that time, we can't tell the lumbosacral angle has been changed. So the lumbar lordosis is increased because after pregnancy, she is going to become normal. The lumbar lordosis is going to decrease. So there will not be a change in lumbosacral angle. We can't tell that the lumbosacral angle has been changed for the pregnant women's. Clear? So the lumbosacral angle, it is not going to get related with increasing age, height or weight or some sort of, that is the obstetrical requirements meet work, that is gynecology and obstetrical requirements. It is not going to play a major role in the formation of lumbosacral angle. But then how it is being increased? It is due to, that is due to the erosion, not because of age, but due to age, some sort of osteoporotic changes and some sort of ligament weakness, our posture, gait. Because of that, due to long incidence, there may be a change in the lumbosacral angle. So that may lead to increased in lumbar lordosis and that will make us stress at the lumbosacral joint. So this lumbosacral angle, see, the normal lumbar lordosis, normal lordotic curve is about 50 degree. That is normal sacral angle is 30 degree. Our pelvic angle is 30 degree. What is that? Is a mean angle of lordosis. Mean angle means that is taking an average between many persons. It can be 29 plus or minus, see, 29 plus or minus 9 in women group and 24 plus or minus 10 in men. So it can increase between 30 to 40 degree. It can get increased or it can get decreased. Okay. Then see, the same lumbar lordosis is measured 49 degree in young 100 adults. That is, these are the scientific researchers papers which they have put in young 100 adults without spinal abnormalities. What we can tell is, see, the lumbosacral angle is increased and the lumbar lordosis is also increased, but he is not having any pain or he is not having some sort of deformity means, then we can tell them that he is normal. Only if there is a problem, then we can go for the measurement and we can go for the further treatment or something like that. Sometimes it can be normal for many persons that the decrease or increase between the 30 to 40 degree. Okay. So coming to kinematics, that is kinematics, I have told what are the movements present in the lumbar region. Movements available is flexion, extension, lateral flexion and rotation. Then gliding, that is little bit of anterior posterior gliding, medial and lateral torsional. Then tilting is available. Then distractions and compressions, these are the kinematics. Then how it is being done? It is done by the spinal coupling. You have written the questions also more than many times you have written this spinal coupling. So when what is meant by coupling is, if a vertebra has to move in one direction, if a flexion has to occur, then there should be another movement. That is, if a movement is occurring in one plane, there must be a contralateral, that is, there must be another movement occurring in another plane to help that particular movement, isn't it? So this is called a spinal coupling. Then what are the ligaments and which are ligaments and muscles? See, these ligaments which are present, these anterior longitudinal ligament, posterior longitudinal, what it will do? Anterior longitudinal ligament, it will limit the extension. Posterior, it will limit the flexion. Then what are the ligaments which are present on posterior side, it will try to prevent or it will try to limit the flexion. The ligaments which are present on the anterior side, it will try to limit the extension. So now lumbar flexion, if you see, more limited than extension. That means what? More limited than extension. So lumbar flexion is more or lumbar extension is more. Don't think about your thoracic region, just think about your lumbar region. In your lumbar region, you have to tell me lumbar flexion is more or lumbar extension is more. Or both are same. Okay, after finishing you will be able to tell. So more limited than extension. Just you leave that first point. Coming to second point, maximum movement is occurring at the lumbosacral joint. Then anterior tilting and gliding of superior vertebra occurs. So there is an increase in the diameter of the intravertebral foramen. See in lumbar extension, increase in lumbar lordosis. So posterior tilting occurs and gliding of superior vertebra. Then lumbar extension reduces the diameter of intervertebral foramina. So from the first two diagram you will be knowing which is more, flexion or extension. Just you tell me at the finishing of the lesson. Then these are the axial rotation, lateral bending. So now coming to lumbar pelvic rhythm, this is also very important 5-mark question. See, lumbar pelvic rhythm, already we have seen in the before chapters about the closed kinematic chain and the open kinematic chain. So that is going to play, as you studied the shoulder joint, the scapulohumeral rhythm, the same pattern is going to come here, the lumbar pelvic rhythm. Because we are going to compare how much the lumbar movements is going to occur, then how much is the pelvic tilting is going to occur. So pelvis, it is mainly above the hip bones, and lumbar is mainly of the vertebra, that is the vertebral bones. So lumbar pelvic rhythm. If lumbar pelvic rhythm means both the movement of lumbar vertebrae and the pelvis. So bending forward, that is lumbar flexion 40 degree, followed by anterior tilting of pelvis at hip joint is 70 degree. If this both are combined only, then this full flexed bending of lumbar pelvic, it can be done. If only lumbar flexion is there and there is no anterior pelvic tilt, then this full flexion is not possible. If you are returning back to the erect position, then what has to come? There has to be a posterior pelvic tilt. Okay, and there has to be a extension of the lumbar spine. So this is an introduction for the lumbar pelvic rhythm. So bending forward, lumbar flexion will be 40 degree, anterior pelvic tilt will be 70 degree. So returning to erect position, it has to go for vice versa, posterior pelvic tilting and the lumbar extension. See, so the lumbar pelvic rhythm, you can see whether this is a closed kinematic chain or a open kinematic chain. You have to think and tell me whether it is open or the closed. So the kinematic relationship between the lumbar spine and the hip joints during the sagittal plane movements. Okay, this is an introduction. See what is happening here. The lumbar joint is formed anteriorly. How the lumbar joint is formed? That is where the L5 and S1 vertebra. So when the head moves forward, pelvic shift is occurring. See, when the head is moving forwards, the pelvic shift is occurring backwards. This is for balance. Okay, this is for balance. Then forward movement normally begins at the upper segment of the spine. Upper segment means what? Not at the lumbar. So it is starting at the upper segment of spine, and when it reaches to the lumbar spine and when it reach to the lumbar spine, the lordosis flattening. That is, what will happen to the lumbar lordosis now? When we are trying to flex, the lumbar lordosis will go for a flattening stage. So it will go for flattening stage and the flexion occurs. So when returning to the upright position, first the pelvic tilts posteriorly, then the lumbar spine extends, then the rest of the spine is extended. That is, first when the head is going to move forward, your upper part of spine is going to move forward, your lumbar lordosis is going to decrease, it becomes flattened, then you are going to bend, so the pelvis is going for anterior pelvic tilt. So number 1 is head tilting, number 2 is upper spine flexion, number 3 is lumbar lordosis is becoming flattening, number 4 is anterior pelvic tilt. Now when she is going to become normal, coming to the erect position, vice versa, it has to occur from the back side. That is, now the pelvis has to go for posterior pelvic tilting, the lumbar spine it has to go for lumbar lordosis, upper spine has to come to original place, extension, then followed by your head coming to your original position. So these 4 points, first you are going to tell clockwise, then after that you are going to tell anti-clockwise. So that is your lumbar pelvic rhythm. So it is limited. How we cannot move? See, you see here, if this lady is moving between the two legs, and can she come out in between the two legs? No, because the movement will be limited. How the movement is limited? The limited movement is due to the shape of the zygapophacial joint. So that will limit the maximum flexion. So after flexion, she has to go for the erect position. Continuous flexion and going inside between the two legs is impossible. It is also restricted by the tension created in the stretched cage. Then all the joints will be having the joint capsules and also the ligaments which are present. So all these things will be in the stretched or the tension position. So they also will not allow the extra movement. Then amount of rotation available at each vertebral level, that is also affected. Because of these 3 points, the lumbar pelvic rhythm is being limited. Okay, so mobility. So what is the lumbar? See the 3 diagrams. First he is standing straight, then head and the upper trunk is coming forward, then the lumbar region, it is a flattening of lumbar lordosis, then the pelvis is being tilted. So these are the 4 important points. So coordinated simultaneous stimulus activity of the lumbar flexion and tilting of pelvis. LPR means lumbar pelvic rhythm. It can increase the range of forward flexion, anterior pelvic tilt and flexion of the lumbar spine. So we will tell how much degrees. 45 degrees of lumbar flexion with a trunk inclination and 90 degree of hip flexion. Okay, so the hip has to get flexed. That is, we are telling anterior pelvic tilt. That means the hip flexion. The flexion of lumbar spine, anterior pelvic tilt, then the hip flexion. Lumbar pelvic rhythm during trunk extension, I told you it is the reverse. Okay, so it is a closed kinematic chain. So the lumbar spine rotate in one direction while the lumbar spine rotate in the opposite direction. First what we are doing is, we are just with the open hands, our head is free, we are just trying to bend forward. So this is also a closed kinematic chain, and coming back to position is the open kinematic chain. So coming to bending lumbar pelvic rhythm, it is a closed kinematic chain. Coming back to erect position is the open kinematic chain. So in the integration of the motion of the pelvis about the hip joints, so it will increases the range of motion available to total column. It reduces the amount of flexibility required. Then the hip motion, it will eliminate the need for all the lumbar flexion, protecting the annulus fibrosus and the posterior ligaments from being fully lengthed. See, lumbar pelvic rhythm, so it helps in the more of the trunk bending. What is the use of lumbar pelvic rhythm is, it is trying to increase the flexibility of the lumbar spine. So lumbar pelvic tilting, it is an open chain movement. That is means what? How we can tell that it is an open chain movement? Pelvic tilting in an open chain movement is coming back to normal. That is the open chain movement. So lumbar pelvic rhythm, the caudal end, how can you tell in other words is, the caudal end of the axial skeleton is firmly attached to the pelvis by the way of sacroiliac joints. Okay, caudal means what? The tail, caudal means what? In a basic anatomy we will tell, no, what is meant by caudal. Caudal means the portion where the spine is present, that is the tail. Caudal means we call it as tail. So the caudal end of the axial skeletal means the lumbar region. It is firmly attached to the pelvis by sacroiliac joints. So there comes the rotation of the pelvis over the femoral head. So the femoral heads are present, the pelvis is being rotating, the hip bones are rotating over the femur, head of the femur. So this is referred to as the lumbar pelvic rhythm. What ipsilateral lumbar pelvic rhythm? The pelvis and the lumbar spine rotate in the same direction. Contra directional lumbar pelvic rhythm, the pelvis and lumbar spine rotate. How it can occur? The pelvis and lumbar spine can rotate in opposite direction. How it occurs? How it occurs? The pelvis and lumbar spine are rotating in the same direction. Ipsilateral lumbar pelvic rhythm, contralateral lumbar pelvic rhythm. How we can tell? See, your spine is flexing and your pelvis is flexing over the head of the humerus. So that is called ipsilateral, same direction. Then what is meant by contralateral? The pelvis and lumbar spine rotate in opposite direction. Then how it will occur? If it is rotating in the opposite direction, how the movement will be present? What type of movement will be present? Any idea? Come, tell me. Ipsilateral means lumbar and pelvic, they both are going in the same direction and we are getting the lumbar pelvic rhythm. Contralateral lumbar pelvic rhythm means what? Whether you are present inside, are you able to follow what I am asking, what question I am asking? All of you are inside. Are you able to follow?
Ma'am.
Then what I am asking, you are not responding. What is the difference? Ipsilateral and contralateral. Find out and tell me tomorrow. I won't tell you. Why this 2 has been written in this lumbar pelvic rhythm, you have to find out. Then what type of movement will be coming, you have to tell me. Then coming back to sway back, I told you if there is increased lordotic curve, then it will lead to sway back. So increased lordotic curve and a little bit of kyphosis. See the thoracic region, it goes for kyphosis. So increased lordotic curve, it will lead to thoracic kyphosis. So that is called sway back. This will lead to, it will make the abdominals weak and lower thoracic extensors and hip flexors will be weak. It will make the posterior sides, that is hip extensors and lumbar extensor, that will become very tight, stiffness, and the upper abdominals also it will become very stiff. So this is called sway back, that is because of the problem, if there is a problem in the lumbo-pelvic rhythm. Then coming to kinematics, that is kinematics means the movement is occurring means that is called kinematics. Kinetics means how it is occurring. These movements are being occurred with the help of what? How it is done. So in this 4 are there, that is axial compression. The same thing you are going to write for everything. Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, axial compression, bending, torsion and shear. So what are the shear and compression forces present on the lumbar vertebrae? That is the moment due to applied load. So one sort of thing is application of the load over it. The another thing is a disc shear force, that is due to the movement how the disc is getting interrupted, that is how the disc is getting injured or how much weight the disc is loading and how much it is moving, movement of the disc, how much weight it is being loaded. Then disc compression force, then erector spinae force, that is the force present in the posterior muscle, that is the erector spinae muscle. So these 4 things are noted for the shear and they are the shearing and the compression pressures. Then lumbar region provides support for weight of upper part of the body in static as well as in dynamic situations. So the lumbar region must also withstand it has to undergo tremendous compressive forces which is being occurred, which is being done by the muscles which are present near to that. Then shearing force. Shearing means in upright standing position, the lumbar segments are subjected to anterior shear force. Shear means, or compression means just we are compressing from top to bottom. We are just squeeze, compression in the sense you can think like if you are keeping a nail and we are just pampering it with the help of a hammer. So that is called your compression force. Then if you think if you are going in a bike, then you will be having some sort of springs over there. Then in case of some sort of speed breaker, it will go up and down. So that is called your compression force. Shearing force is movement of the vertebra anteriorly and posteriorly. That is anterior movement and the posterior movement. That is called shear. So in upright standing position, the lumbar segments are subjected to the anterior shearing forces. So these forces these forces are caused by the position of the lordosis, then the body weight, then the ground reaction force. Any one of you can tell me what is ground reaction force, whether you are able to remember what is ground reaction force. It has been covered in GATE, then ground reaction force in first year also we have seen some 2 marks or 5 mark question, ground reaction force. What is meant by ground reaction force? whether it is towards gravity or against gravity. Tell me that, whether the GFR, ground reaction, GRF. So GRF is also an important question. Ground reaction force is towards gravity or away from the gravity? Against gravity. Tell me that. So these are, you won't tell. So these are the forces, I will tell the answers. These are the forces, it is towards the gravity. The forces which are being towards the gravity, that makes your body to stand erect, or that makes your body to stand on the ground, that is called ground reaction force. This is not against gravity, okay. So this is the ground reaction force, it is towards the gravity. So it is resisted by direct impaction of inferior psychopophacial facets and superior vertebra. So these things are responsible for the shearing force, that is your lordotic spine lordotic position, the body weight, the ground reaction force, then the resistance offered by the facet joints. So see in this how the shear forces are occurring and how the compression forces are occurring. So compression force direction you can see from top to bottom. Shear force is from anteriorly to posteriorly. Torque is just rotation. Torque is a coupling of motions. So it will try to rotate the vertebra. That is called the torque. So these are the kinetics of the spinal vertebra. That is axial compression, bending. Bending is we saw in flexion, extension, lumbopelvic rhythm. So that is bending. Torsion is nothing but like a torsion is a torque, how it is getting rotated, the vertebra is getting rotated. Shear or is the anterior and the posterior moving forces. Okay, so able to follow lumbar region. So tomorrow we can go to the sacral region. So anything you want to tell, you can tell me. You can unmute yourself and you can tell me. So today the three questions, the thoracolumbar fascia is very important, lumbar pelvic rhythm is very important, and then what is the one more, another question we saw, one more question, what is that?
Ground reaction force.
No, ground reaction force, okay, the other things.
Lumbosacral angle.
Lumbosacral angle, but the lumbosacral angle and the lumbopelvic rhythm mostly it will come near normal. Okay, so these two important questions are being covered in the lumbosacral region. So tomorrow we will go to sacral region, then we will finish the injuries. Then gait, are you all thorough in gait? Biomechanics gait. Next, what you want me to teach? Because another 2 or 3 classes we will finish vertebral column.